Hello and welcome back to the Final Fantasy IX / Skyrim grind. I am Circle Master, and I have music again. And I have a half fight, and I hate that. So I'm gonna have to remember to have a half fight on the way back. And also I forgot to reconcile the fight counter because I'm not smart. Anyway, hey music. I don't even have it set correctly. My apologies. Nope, put the sword away. I've done everything wrong. There we go. There's music, I promise. Not just the fight music. Maybe it's... It's ambient. There, you heard that. I'm not crazy. I'm sitting here gaslighting myself about music being there or not. Jeez. Anyway... this is still from Storyblocks. This is the same audio library that I have licensed. I'm just hoping that by downloading some fresh tracks, I will not get the copyright claims. 2 more of which have been released, so tomorrow I actually get to publish the next episode. One is still pending dispute resolution for the following episode from that. So there may be another big gap, but then I've got others that are up, waiting with bated breath to get published, such that I might actually be able to do a daily videos on YouTube, publishing these VODs. And won't that be nice? I think so. I think it'll be quite nice. But I could be wrong. I am very often wrong, in fact. I must have not healed at the end of the last stream. I just looked and saw that I'm like 1,000 hit points down. So that was an oops. And since nobody's here in the chat, I don't know how these audio levels are going to come out. But that's about as usual. At least I have more than just the ambient cave sound of Skyrim piping into my ears. So I should be less disturbed than I was in the last video. My goodness. That was a mess. I was a mess. I promise they're not all as low energy as this. There's variety. And hopefully I will have, once again, a variety of genres available in streams to come. Hey Monokumax, how's it going? No, I would imagine that you would never die this, because it's really hard to die in this part of the game. Especially once you're level 60. But also in Skyrim, as long as you don't walk into the bear, you're fine. Plus, you could probably take the bear. This is designed that you just shoot it with a bow and it dies, so I would guess that if you accidentally stumble into it, you could still whap it with your sword and kill it before it kills you. Please let me know how the audio levels are, if the music is too loud or too quiet. I would guess too loud, though, based on the bars. You're on your phone. Well, there's music playing, I promise. Which is a nice change of pace from the last several streams. Music a little loud. Okay, we can adjust that. My mouse already fell asleep? What's the deal? There we go. No, don't pull out your sword. Everything goes wrong as soon as I touch something. Anyway, I have scoshed the music down. It is hopefully not too loud anymore. I'm drifting in Skyrim. I need to not drift. If this were a racing game, drifting would be good. But this is an RPG. Although now that I've said it, Starfield's gonna have spaceships. It could conceivably have a racing mini-game. You could race a ship around a track and drift. I guess space could also have drifting in the you've run out of fuel and are screwed sense as well. But either way, it could have drifting. Yeah, exactly, like Star Wars Episode 1 Racer. Was it just called Episode 1 Racer, or was it called Episode 1 Pod Racer? I don't remember. It was weird how good that game was. I was prepared for that game to be a cheap cash-in, like, meme level of game. Like, I guess before there were memes. But, I was braced for the terrible end of LucasArts licensed games. And it was actually very competent and enjoyable. I might... No. Maybe? I'm trying to remember. One of... It's either... It's either Episode 1 Racer or Rogue Squadron that I got at some point the PC port of. It might be terribly broken at first, but I would really like it if Bethesda looked at the reception that Fallout 76 got and then looked at the reception that Cyberpunk 2077 got from a very well-respected game developer that dropped the ball in CD Projekt Red and burned all their goodwill. And I would hope against hope, that they might learn a lesson from these experiences. And also Microsoft might force them to make the game somewhat polished. Because they are owned by Microsoft now. And it's going to be like, what, a day one Game Pass and Xbox Game Pass and Xbox One exclusive, right? Probably, I would guess. And I would imagine that Microsoft would not want the first game of their grand acquisition to be released exclusively on their platforms to be terrible. So one can only hope that either by hook or by crook, Bethesda actually makes the game playable out of the box. Oh yeah, I mean, I'm going to try it too. I'm not going to not play it. Like, Fallout 76, I never played because I didn't enjoy Fallout 4 and I don't enjoy MMOs, really. So, like, there was nothing for me there. And then it released and it was the most hilariously broken mess. Except when it was the most aggravatingly broken mess that they were charging money for, and I'm like, nope. So yeah, I think even though it's on Game Pass now, I haven't played it. I don't expect Starfield to be that level. I expect Starfield to at least be Fallout 4 level. Well, my understanding is that it's better now. Like, after the acquisition, work was eventually put into it to make it better. But, like, I remember it came out and it was horribly panned by everybody. And their response was to, like, ramp up the cash shop. And now my understanding is they're actually, like, putting out content and such for it and trying to make it a fun experience that you can actually play. But I'm still not going to play it. Because why bother? Also, hey, Yoda-san 2. Or Yoda-san 2. Or however else I might be supposed to pronounce that username, because I don't know. It is very late, but I am at work on 2 games at once. Because if I had 1,000,000 hours to grind, you know what I'd do? 2 games at once. That was a reference to Office Space. It was terrible. As soon as I started to say it, I was like, I should not follow through on this joke. It's going to be bad, and nobody's going to want to hear it, and very few people will actually even get it. But it was already coming out of my mouth at that point. So, there it was. And if there's one thing I do, it's finish what I start. Kind of what I'm known for. You know what I'm not known for? Terrible table topics. It stayed on. Because you were... Oh, so like Saiyan, like DBZ, Super Saiyan. It needs a Y in there for that. If it was like S-A-Y-N, then I could see it. Yoda Saiyan. But yeah, it looks like Japanese Yoda. Yoda-san. You know, like that. So, I can understand the regret. Just like you're gonna regret when I pull out tonight's table topic. Table topics are a box of cards next to me that have what are supposed to be conversation starters about what is called geek pop. And they're in fact very shallow questions that invite no discussion. Let's look at tonight's. Yoda is actually just some Japanese name. Is that true? That could be true. I would believe that. I've seen Yoshido, but not Yoda. But hey, what do I know? I'm some white guy. Have I been forgetting the button? I probably have been forgetting the fight counter button. But anyway, let's talk table topic. Tonight's table topic is... Has a comic book ever given you nightmares? Has a comic book ever given you nightmares? No. A comic book has never given me nightmares. The closest a comic book came to giving me nightmares was a What If comic from Marvel back in the day, back in the 80s. It was What If Kraven the Hunter killed Spider-Man? In reference to some issue or something where Kraven the Hunter captures Spider-Man, but then Spider-Man like recovers and beats him up or whatever. And this is like, what if Kraven the Hunter captures him and then just shoots him in the face? And the answer is he shoots him in the face and Spider-Man dies. And Kraven the Hunter does some kind of weird ritual where he eats a bunch of spiders. He like covers himself in spiders and starts chowing down on them. He gains Spider-Man's powers doing this. The Fantastic Four come looking for Spider-Man, find Kraven with Spider-Man powers wearing Spider-Man's costume, who attacks Fantastic Four, and Fantastic Four fight back thinking they're fighting against Spider-Man. But Kraven starts busting out like weird adaptations of poetry in some kind of pseudo-philosophical thing related to the fact that he's apparently just a crazy person now. And none of it made any sense. But the panel where he's covered in spiders that he is devouring, that weirded me the hell out, and I was like, yuck. And that's the closest that I came to getting a nightmare from a comic book. An acid trip of a What If comic where Spider-Man is murdered and Kraven the Hunter becomes an insane Spider-Man copy or something. I read this when I was like 8 years old, so my memory of the plot of what happens in this is very, very 30 years ago or so. Well, to be fair, the 90s X-Men cartoon, while having some insane moments in its own right, was also very good. I don't remember much of 90s Spider-Man. I'm sure I watched some of it, but I have like no memory of it anymore. Um, and 90s Batman the Animated Series, also good. 90s comic book cartoons were like legit. It's weird. Oh, I don't have Disney Plus, so no 90s Spider-Man for me, I guess. Is 90s X-Men also on Disney Plus? I mean, they weren't meant for little kids, but you know, Batman, X-Men, that was aimed at what we would now call the tween crowd, the like 11, 12, 13-year-old demographic. That was definitely not like for mature audiences. It was not to be taken super seriously by grown people. This song is called Chuck Balls, in case you couldn't figure that out. So yeah, that was tonight's table topic. It was a single question. The answer was no, and that was it. Yeah, it had death and relationships in them, but it had like off-screen deaths, most of which they came back from because comic books. And it had relationships that were like dating slash kissing. It was never more than that. It was who's dating who. It was at the level of kids entering puberty. There was never the question brought up in the 90s X-Men cartoon of if Gambit and Rogue are in love, can he just wear a condom? Well, is that enough to stop him from getting his life sucked out while they bone? So yeah, like it's a step up from the typical Saturday morning affair or Saturday morning cartoon affair that are like the 6 to 12. This was more like 11 to 15, 16. And like at 15, 16, you're kind of a little old for it. But like if you started watching when you were 12 and it just stayed on the air and you just kept watching it, it's more understandable. And then you grow up to be a millennial who has nostalgia for things in the 90s, I guess. It does have the X-Men cartoon on Disney Plus. Okay, I'm still not buying Disney Plus. I don't know what X-Men Evolution is. I'm guessing a series that came out after I was done watching X-Men cartoons. Oh yeah. Early 2000s I was too old for that sort of thing anymore. Don't ask me what I was doing in the early to mid 2000s because I don't remember because my brain doesn't work anymore. I don't know, when did Frasier go off the air? Mid 2000s is probably too late for Frasier. There's probably an era of Seinfeld reruns. And then there's, Simpsons. Simpsons, by the mid 2000s, was not good anymore. But, like, you had Futurama. Early Family Guy was probably in that era. So, yeah, the more teen to adult cartoons. But hey, if we're talking about early '90s cartoons, we gotta mention Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Pretty sure that was late '80s, early '90s. I'm pretty sure that was after Transformers. Transformers was, I think, solidly the '80s. SNES is never not cool. As long as you're talking about the classics. Like, the best Super Nintendo games still hold up today. I guess you could say that of every system, but, like, there's probably not many NES games you can go back to. You got Super Mario Bros. 3, the original Legend of Zelda, and even original Legend of Zelda is a stretch. Because it is pretty archaic in a lot of ways. Yeah, Super Castlevania 4 is Super Nintendo. Castlevania 3? Maybe? I think a lot more people have nostalgia for Castlevania 3 than Super Castlevania 4. Although I never beat Castlevania 3 and I did beat Castlevania 4, so make of that what you will. Oh, Track and Field 2. The only game you could play with the power pad and not feel like an idiot for playing a game on a power pad because it's literally running and such. I feel like nobody goes back to Super Mario Bros. 1 unless they're doing... Like, I only ever hear about people playing that for speedrunning purposes. Like, speedrunners play Super Mario Bros. 1. But I never... Like, nobody talks about, oh, I go back and play Super Mario Bros. 1. It's always 3. Or sometimes 2. 2 is like a completely different game. But yeah, 3 was great. And you can go back and play 3. Marble Madness, I don't think I ever played. The first TMNT game is kind of... It's more notorious than nostalgic, I think. Kind of like Battletoads. Battletoads is more notorious than nostalgic. Yeah, ROM hacks don't count. I'm talking about classics. Like, if you're gonna whip out your old, dusty old console to play a game. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, the arcade game, was good. I actually didn't own that. I rented that a couple times, but the one that I owned was TMNT 3, the Manhattan Project. But again, if people are going for nostalgia TMNT beat-em-ups, they're going to talk about Turtles in Time, which was Super Nintendo. So there are certain games that would be NES classics if they didn't have SNES revisions, iterations that more perfected the formula. So yeah, Turtles 4 kind of blows Turtles 2 and 3 out of the water. There are people who still have nostalgia for Turtles 2. I have nostalgia for Turtles 3 personally because that's the one I owned, but I think 2 is a better game. But everybody's like Turtles 4, Turtles in Time. I have never heard of Night Slashers. I don't know what that is. But like Super Mario World is a great iteration on Super Mario Bros. 3 and my personal favorite Mario game. But Super Mario Bros. 3 is still so good that it holds up. Like, you can play Super Mario Bros. 3 and Super Mario World and enjoy them both. But if you played Turtles in Time and then try to go back to Turtles 2 or 3 on the NES, you're just going to want to replay Turtles in Time instead. Frenchie318 with the Prime sub. Thank you so much for that. I'm sorry that I don't have more than just that alert for that, but alerts are hard, and also I only just recently switched to Stream Element, but thank you so much. Jeff Bezos doesn't deserve that money. I deserve that money more than Jeff Bezos, and he's already paying for it, right? So if you don't spend your Prime sub, you're just letting him keep that cash in his pocket. Take that cash out of his pocket. Give it to a streamer. Always appreciate it. Thank you, Frenchie. Anyway, Night Slashers, it's a 90s arcade beat 'em up. Like, did it come out in the 90s? Or is it a retro style game? You don't know how to sub. If you need to have Twitch linked to your Amazon account, which means you need to go into Twitch and like tell it where your Amazon account is. And then you should have an option on Twitch for the subscribes button to subscribe with Prime. It'll be like at the bottom. Like they don't want to make it too obvious that you can get a free sub with Prime, so they'll put it after all the tiered paid sub options. Yeah, it came out in the 90s. I've never heard of it. I don't know anything about it, unfortunately. If you want to talk about beat 'em up arcade cabinets, let's talk Simpsons. Let's talk X-Men. Let's talk Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I guess. I'm sure they had a beat 'em up arcade cabinet. Oh yeah, it was called TMNT2, the arcade game. Let's see, when you played old Super Mario Bros. Game. Yeah, Super Mario Bros. All-Stars is fine. It is a little weird. It's not the same as playing the original games. It's a little, like you said, floaty, a little looser. But, like, the ability to save on the cart was huge when that game came out. Malik, meanwhile, wants some biblical history, which means I need to go grab the book. I'm gonna hit pause for the timer's sake. On the bright side, Skyrim will continue to grind while I read from page 721 of Biblical History. Let's go there. We are still in the Old Testament, it looks like. We're going further. No, I lied. We're into the New Testament. At the 780s. 781. We are in the Gospel of Matthew. Wow. Okay, so page 781 is page 2 of 3 of a discussion of Mary. And you know what? I'm just going to give the whole discussion of Mary, because why not? Joseph, finding that his betrothed is pregnant, assumes she has behaved... Oh, 721. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. I went past it. 721. Are we still going to be in New Testament times? I'm so bad. Well, now you know, if you say 780 or 781 or 782, you'll land on Mary. 721. We are barely in the New Testament. We're in the first book of Maccabees. And we're going to talk about Antioch. Antiochus IV left his young son with Lysias and half his army, as well as his instructions to wipe out the Jewish rebels. 1 Maccabees chapter 3 verse 37. So the king took half of his forces that remained and departed from Antioch, his royal city, the 147th year, aka 165 BC, and passed the river Euphrates. Antioch, the royal city, that is the Seleucid capital, was at this time a comparatively young city. When Alexander the Great died in 323 BC, Babylon was still the greatest city of the East, and it was in Babylon that he died. Babylon remained a great prize for the generals who contended for the crown. It was captured by Seleucus I Nicator in 312 BC, and that established him on the throne of Macedonian Asia, and served to mark the date of the founding of the Seleucid Empire. Yet the capture by Seleucus was the last important event in Babylonian history. Seleucus was a founder of cities and felt that his capital ought to be a new city, and not one as old and as hoary with non-Greek tradition as Babylon was. The year of his conquest of Babylon, Seleucus therefore began to build a new capital for himself on the Tigris River, some 20 miles north of Babylon. He called the new city Seleucia. I'm going to butcher all these pronunciations, I'm sorry. After himself. As Seleucia grew, Babylon declined. The people left the old city for the new, and the buildings of Babylon served as raw material for construction in Seleucia. By Maccabean times, the mighty Babylon of Hammurabi and Nebuchadnezzar was finished, and 16 centuries of histories closed with a whimper. The city that had carried off the Jews 4 centuries before was now a miserably dying village, and Jerusalem, which it had temporarily destroyed, was still alive after all, and about to embark on a new period of independence. However, Seleucia was not the only capital. To be sure, it was centrally located and it grew rich and prosperous. If the Seleucids had remained there and concentrated on the eastern portion of their empire, they might have fused Greek and Persian into a combined society that would have lasted indefinitely. Psychologically, though, the Seleucids were always drawn westward. The Greek core was to the west, and the Seleucids were always aware of the enormous attraction of all things Greek. A few miles of Syria, or a stretch of the coast of Asia Minor, meant more to them than 1,000 miles of Central Asia. So they fought endless wars with Egypt, while vast tracts of the east crumbled. And because of their concentration on the west, they needed a center there. In 300 BC, Seleucus had founded a city in northwest Syria near the Mediterranean. He named it Antiochia, in memory of his father, the Macedonian general Antiochus, and we know it as Antioch. This city near the Greek thick of things was ideal as a western capital. Through the succeeding reigns, each successive monarch enlarged and beautified Antioch. The center of gravity of the Seleucid Empire shifted westward, and by the time of Antiochus IV, Antioch was the major city of the realm, and stood second only to Alexandria in the Greek world. How are people so sure about these things? Because historical documents and testimonies and writings that survived the era. Also, their decision making. Like, after Alexander's death, there were 4 generals who who basically split up his empire among themselves. And I don't remember all their names. I'm sorry. But basically, they always fought wars with each other over Greek territory. Nobody tried to invade the Seleucid Empire in order to capture Babylon. It was always people focused on areas like Athens. Remember all their names. I don't remember all their names. I will have to look up their names. The ones relevant to the Bible are the Seleucid Greeks and the Ptolemaic Greeks of Egypt. The other 2, I don't know. So let's turn off the auto run so I don't screw something up with Skyrim. Pergamum and Antonid, Macedonia. They were collectively, the 4 generals were the Diadochi. I'm trying to read this off Wikipedia. I don't know how to pronounce that. But yeah, like Alexander's kingdom or his empire was a huge stretch all the way from the Mediterranean into India. And all of the fighting was westward. All right, that's enough of that. That was far too much time spent on all of Antioch. So yeah, it's not just a matter of, oh, they wrote this down but people tell lies. Like, successive generations of rulers fought war after war with each other over parts of the empire, continuing all the way up until the rise of Rome as a global power. Just like there was constant infighting between Nintendo and Sega and Sony and Microsoft until the rise of the PC Master Race. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, I should probably put a channel point reward for the Shakespeare book too. Although that would be more complicated because if you just go by page number, you're not gonna know what play you're gonna land on. But if you break it down by play, like the individual chapters for each play are huge in their own right. So at some point you're going to have to break it down by page number. So I guess you just have to live with the fact that it's a crapshoot, kind of like with the Bible. So yeah. I mean, PC is good. Like, buying a PC is more expensive than buying a console. PC games are so much cheaper than console games, however. And if you know how to use the internet, they're even cheaper than that. that I think you can make the argument that over the lifespan of a console, because like a console generation is what, 5 to 7 years now, something like that, isn't it? You can get a PC and have it last 5 to 7 years, and if you're buying 5 to 7 years worth of PC games versus 5 to 7 years of console games, I bet the price disparity is a lot less than you might imagine. Unless you're like... Unless you're chasing frames and you're buying the latest of everything. At which point, like, it's your own fault. And that's not even counting, like, back catalog. Like, if you get a PS5, I don't know what back catalog you get access to, but it's like it's not all PlayStation games ever. A PC can reasonably run a lot of PC games, and if you are willing to dive into the mess that is like virtual machines and things like that, you can go a long way back. You can, like, GOG.com sells really old PC games, like, bundled or set up already with DOSBox, so that you just download the installer, run it, and go, and you're playing, like, PC classics from 30 years ago, and they just work. You're not going to be able to get a Nintendo Switch and play your 30-year-old classic Nintendo games on it without buying them again from the overpriced eShop, assuming that Nintendo will deign to sell them to you. Nintendo has a real problem with it. More so than the other companies. Of making their previous library of games inaccessible through any legal means. And I don't know why. And yeah, there's the argument that, oh, you have Steam and you have 1,000 Steam games and you don't play any of them. Therefore, it was all a waste of money. But, like, one, that's kind of on us for doing that. And two, if you bought that many console games, it would cost way, way more. I actually had that same kind of issue with the PlayStation 2. I had way more PlayStation 2 games than I actually played. Because I would buy games just on the off chance that I would play them. Because, like, GameStop, Jesus, would have, like, bargain bin returns. And even then, they were like $10. So, like, I'd look at $60 game that I may or may not enjoy, $10 game that I may or may not enjoy. I'm going to get the $10 game. So I ended up with a lot of PlayStation 2 games that I basically never played. And now I have a PC, and I have a bunch of Steam games that I basically never play, but the Steam games were like $1 a piece instead of $10. Oh, I don't still have a bunch of PlayStation 2 games. Like, at one point I moved and I didn't want to schlep all this stuff. So I took a bunch of my old, like, PS2 and Wii and other stuff. I'm trying not to sneeze, sorry. I took them to a retro game store and I sold them for what I could get for them. Because, like I said, I was never playing them. They weren't doing me any good. I didn't want to take to the space to schlep them across the country. So yeah, my video game library in terms of physical media on console is definitely reduced. I mostly kept my Super Nintendo and NES ones, because those were the ones I had the most nostalgia for. But, like, I only have a handful of PS1 games. I only have, like, a dozen PS2... Well, more than a dozen, probably. I only have, like, 10 to 20 PS2 games left. I ended up selling my Wii outright. I sold all my Wii games. I ended up selling my Xbox 360 and all my 360 games, because I just never played them. Like, when I played on console, I played PS2. I have a PS3 still that I haven't touched in forever. But at that point, I was, getting more seriously into PC games. So I only owned a handful of PS3 games. And it's kind of the same with PS4. Like, I was getting the PS Plus free games, but in terms of physical media, I only have a handful of PS4 games. And I was never interested in getting an Xbox One, because, like, everything on Xbox One comes to PC sooner or later. And now they have Game Pass, so, like, why would I? And the same reason I'm not interested in a Series X. Like, I have it available on PC. Why wouldn't I just get the PC version? Now, that's a high-class problem for people who aren't me, because I still have a 1080p television, on which I am currently playing Final Fantasy IX. The new generation of TVs just came out, and I've been kind of trying to pay some attention to that, and it turns out that they are all a mixed bag. The Sony and the LG and the Samsung 2022 TVs, for whatever reason, I remember hearing a bunch of hype about them. I don't know why. And now they're, like, coming out and reviews are coming in, and it's like, yeah, they're good. They're better than the last year's. But, like, they're last year's but better. They're not a new revolution in how television works. Like, the new LG OLEDs are like last year's LG OLEDs, except they should be better about burn-in, so that burn-in doesn't happen as quickly. It's like, great. The Samsung QD LED TVs are better for brightness, and it turns out that they over-brighten to trick the customer into thinking that they're that much better than OLEDs, when really they're just oversaturating the image and it's not color accurate to what it's actually showing anymore. So you get, if you put on like an HDR movie, it's gonna look super bright and distracting, because they're literally over-brightening the colors to make it pop. So they get the good impression on you, so that you put them side by side and you think the Samsung looks better, when really the OLED is more accurate. So it's like, why would I get? To say nothing of how expensive they are. So it's like, oh, I could get a 4K TV that's like an old TN panel. And why would I? I can get a new TV that's not a zero compromises TV, so I can't justify the cost of that. So why would I do that? So I still have a 1080p not smart TV. It doesn't have any kind of SoC on it. It doesn't have any kind of Wi-Fi capability on it. It's a television. It's an LED TV, so it displays an image, and that's it. It's not smart. It's not special. It's not super anything. It's just a TV. And for playing Final Fantasy IX, it's all I need. Yeah, that's the thing, is that we're in this world now where, like, if I want to play a Super Nintendo or an NES and get the best, most authentic experience, I need to, like, scour for a CRT TV. One of the old cathode ray tube televisions with the bulbous curved screen and the analog signal capability. Of course, I'm not going to do that. I'm sure there is some company that is manufacturing them for this audience, for the retro audience that wants authentic analog signal reproduction. And I'm sure they're crazy expensive as a result. Because it's a niche product for a niche audience. I'm regretting getting music that has any kind of lyrics to it. I'm not gonna lie. I'm sitting here thinking, I shouldn't use this song. Same with Chuck Balls. I'm like, that's a little repetitive and annoying. Maybe that's just me, though. Yeah, newly built ones. I'm sure a company exists that newly builds CRTs, and I'm sure they're stonks, because you're talking about like a bespoke product for a niche audience. Yeah, exactly. A newly built CRT TV or CRT monitor costs as much as or more than the newly released OLED TVs and QD-LED monitors. Hey, we're under 10,000 XP to the next level. That's new. We were like 40,000 XP away at the start of the week, weren't we? Or maybe I'm going crazy and misremembering. And when I say start of the week, I mean start of last week, because that's how my brain is going. But like, we made some good chunk of progress. I'm still auto-running and my mouse fell asleep. Yeah, I am. Okay, cool. I couldn't remember if I had done that properly or not in Skyrim. Come on. Stop drifting. There we go. What I need are 2 games like Skyrim. I need a second game that I can grind levels without keyboard input, thanks to autorun. Because then I can have, like, 3 corners of the canvas with games in them, and then the last quarter can have the fight counter and the alert box. And I can grind 3 games at once. And still only be able to put 1 category in Twitch. Oblivion, you can't make skills legendary. Once I max out Sneak, I'm done. It only works in Skyrim because they added the ability to make skills legendary in a patch. And Fallout 4, I would need to be active on it. And I don't think I would have a way to separate the inputs. So, you know, like if I had a PC controller or something, so that I could have PlayStation controller in one hand and then Fallout 4 on the other hand on a controller plugged into the PC, it would do things in Skyrim too. Unless I literally unbound every control in Skyrim, except for the auto-run key. And escape, so I can pull up the menu. But that's like... I don't think that's feasible. Especially because Fallout 4 grinding in the starting area requires a lot of input. I should know. I did a playlist of Fallout 4 Never Leave Sanctuary where I got to level 50 without leaving Sanctuary. Maybe I'll remember to put a card linking that playlist on the YouTube video. I won't. I'm sorry. If you search like Circle Master Never Leave Sanctuary or something like that, you can find it on my channel. I'm too stupid to remember to put the card on YouTube. I'm sorry. But yeah, I got to level 50 in Fallout 4 in the starting area. Not like without leaving the vault. That's not possible, I'm pretty sure. But I went out to Sanctuary, I did the Codsworth thing. I don't know that that's gonna work any better, Malik. And then I basically scrapped everything I could. And then I save scummed the cellar that exists as a separate load zone with randomized loot containers until I got the crystal, I think it's crystal, that I needed to make the radio beacon. And then I built the radio beacon to attract settlers, because that's the only way to get settlers into Sanctuary without having to do Preston and Pals in Concord. And I couldn't go to Concord because it was Neverleaf Sanctuary. But I got I didn't get Preston and Pals. I got the crystal to make the radio tower. I got a bunch of settlers there. Leveled up by building like wooden posts and metal fences until I could get the, I forget what perk it was. It was like local leader? It's something under charisma. So that I could build stores, and then I could assign the settler to a store, at which point they would refresh their inventory every couple days, and I could actually get get materials so that I could continue building fence posts and wire and metal fences. And I got that material by selling them like excess water. I built a bunch of water purifiers. I was getting like 100 water a day. So I was just selling them purified water, spending those caps on stuff that had metal and wood. I built up the settlement some, I got some concrete and whatever, built beds and a fight club, the Dan and Grace Memorial Fight Club, as a tribute to all the Let's Plays that they had started and then abandoned. At least one of which they went on to finish because of my pestering. They actually went back and finished XCOM 2 because I mocked them relentlessly with the Dan and Grace Memorial Fight Club. And there might have been another one that they finished, but I don't remember. So yeah, those videos are out there. I screwed around a bunch. I did other stuff. Eventually I got to level 50 in Sanctuary, at which point I left to explore the Waste. But I was level 50 and nothing had any challenge for me, and I got bored. And also because I had the Game of the Year edition or whatever the hell it was that had all the DLC, I started the game with an overpowered set of Doom Guy armor. So, like, I was extra overpowered for the entire game. So yeah, eventually I just got bored and stopped making those videos, because I'd already done what I set out to do, and I had no purpose anymore. And I was like, maybe I'll do the DLC, because I had never done it before, and then I didn't. Like, I probably should have just gone straight for the DLC, if I'm honest. I eventually went back to Fallout 4, not on that save file, on a different file, and did Nuka World, and it was aggressively blah. Like, even as somebody who enjoyed Disneyland growing up, which they were obviously trying to do, and they were obviously trying to do, like, a New Vegas thing. Only instead of New Vegas, it's Nuka World, where, you know, you have the glitz and glam or whatever. But, like, it was a pale shadow of what it could have been. And also, everyone was annoying. And, like, there were, like, 2 quests from NPCs in that whole thing. Like, I must have sucked at it because I never found side quests. I found, like, 2 side quests, and one of them was from the super fan who's like, I wanted to find all the hidden Nuka things. You know, it was an obvious reference to hidden Mickeys. But the mechanic was put on these special glasses and explore the whole fucking park to find like 50 things. I'm like, I'm not doing that. That sounds awful. So I didn't do that. And then, like, trying to talk to the bosses that were left after, you know, I did the power plant thing because one of them betrayed me. I think I snubbed the beast dudes. I forget what they're called. The pack. I think I snubbed them because, like, I don't give a shit. So I murdered the crap out of them. And then I was like, hey, maybe there's some stuff to do. And there was Radiant quests. And I'm like, I don't want to do Radiant quests. That's boring. And I was like, just wandering around talking to people, trying to find the side quests, and I found crazy find the hidden Mickeys quest that I wasn't going to do. I don't even remember what the other side quest I found was, because I never did that one either. That was my experience with Nuka World. The only engaging part of the combat was the gauntlet at the start. Like, clearing out the different lands was each annoying in its own unique way. And then, I just never went on to do Far Harbor because I wanted to, like, bring Nick. I wanted to bring Nick to Far Harbor, but it was like, that means I have to do the main quest to get Nick. And at the point that I'm doing the main quest to get Nick, I'm like, I should probably pick a side. And given the content in it, I should probably do the Institute. So I should probably play the main quest at least far enough to join the Institute. And I was like thinking all of these things as I'm wandering around looking for Diamond City to start this whole process. And I'm like, I don't want to do any of this. Like, I know it will make the DLC better if I do this, but I don't want to. Because I don't like Fallout 4. So I didn't. Like, eventually I did find Diamond City, but I ended up just, like, hanging out there for a little while, trying to justify myself. So, like, I did the radio dude quest, Miles, or whatever, or Travis, or whatever the hell his name is. The radio DJ in Diamond City. I did his side quest. Because, you know, that's fun. And then I was like, and I was just done with it at that point. I couldn't bring myself to do any of the main story of Fallout 4. It's just that bad. It's kind of extra sad because I haven't even done the main quest with every faction. I've only, like, I did it. What did I do first? I think I did Brotherhood of Steel first. Because, like, of the factions, I fucking hated Preston Garvey. And I didn't like the Railroad. And it's like, the Institute is the bad guy, so they probably have the least content, is what I thought, based on New Vegas. And the Legion having the least content. So I did, I'll do Brotherhood of Steel. Brotherhood of Steel are definitely going to have content, because it's the Brotherhood of Steel. It's like a tentpole of Bethesda Fallout games. And it was okay. It wasn't great. It was okay. And then I decided to try the Institute, because, like, I'll try a run as the bad guys. So I joined the Institute, and it was the weirdest dichotomy of you can explore the Institute and see how obviously evil they are being, but nobody's responsible for it. Like, you never meet an NPC who is doing an evil thing for a reason, and you can be like, hey, why are you making super mutants? Because for some reason they're making super mutants. You can't be like, hey, why are you abducting people? Because nobody's abducting people. Like, you read about it on terminals, but, like, there's not a head of abductions department or anything like that. There's nobody responsible for it. It's just kind of happening, and you can read about it on terminals, but nobody's actively doing it. There are no quests related to it. You can't decide to not do it, even though you're made the head of the Institute. You can't, like, as the head of the Institute, you decide whether you want more synths or better synths in the finale. That is your choice. Do you want a bunch of synths, or do you want slightly statted up synths? And then that's what happens during the finale. Whether you stick with the Institute and attack the Brotherhood of Steel, you either have more synths or better synths alongside you, or if you do traitor thing, whatever, bail on the Institute and do another faction, and you're attacking the Institute has more synths or statted up synths, and that's literally the only difference. And it's like, you can't... I honestly don't remember any of the side quests in the Institute. Maybe it didn't even have any. I don't remember any. So, like... it can't even justify its own existence. And the whole plot of the Institute is they're having to siphon power from power plants that exist in the Commonwealth, which is not reliable. So we want to build a fusion reactor in the Institute so that we can power the Institute and be self-sustained. And it's like, why do you need to kill and replace people to do this? You don't. Why do you need super mutants to do this? You don't? Then why are you doing any of those things? Oh, nobody's doing those things. Those things just happen. And it's utterly pointless. Like, I would have loved it. Or at least I would have appreciated it. Maybe not loved. Loved is a strong word. I would have appreciated it. You remember the Brotherhood of Steel in Fallout New Vegas? Let's bring up New Vegas in comparison to Fallout 4. What an original take. Brotherhood of Steel in New Vegas. You can go to Hidden Valley and go into the Brotherhood of Steel bunker and find them and be like, yo, what up? Let's do quests for you. And the Elder will send you to do things. And if you do enough of his long fetch quests and the really annoying one to get the parts for the air filters, God, I hate that one. But if you do all of his stuff, then you can become a Brotherhood of Steel member. And they will revere you. Or love you. Or whatever it's called. But, like, a couple steps into that, the other Brotherhood of Steel guy comes to you and is like, hey, the Elder sucks. I want to replace him. If you do this other set of quests for me, I can replace the Elder and you won't have to do his air filter quest. And then I can make you a Brotherhood of Steel member. So you have these dual paths, and each path is only like 3 quests long. You have like 1 or 2 in common. The 1 or 2 you do at the start before the other guy shows up to be like, hey, I want to get rid of the Elder. So you'll do, I think, 2 quests at the start, and then you'll branch off, and there's like 2 or 3 quests down each branch. So it's not like there's a ton of split content. It's a very reasonable total number of quests for what has been a major faction in Fallout that is expected to be there. And like, if you replay it and do the other side, then you'll see some different quests. You'll have some different outcomes. And like, why couldn't they do that for the Institute? Why couldn't they do it so that you go to the Institute and father is your son and blah 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 blah. And you do some Institute quests. And then somebody else comes up to you and is like, hey, did you know the Institute's doing some really shady shit? How about you side with me and we do a different thing? And there could have been that same thing. You have like 2 or 3 quests difference where you can actually address what the Institute is doing, such that by the time you are named the leader of the Institute, like, you've actually shaped, narratively at least, the direction the Institute is going in. Instead, you have, hey, the Institute is a thing, but I don't like that synths are slaves, because we're making a very obvious slavery reference, because for some reason that's what we want to do with synths, is say that they're slaves. And then you have the railroad quest. So it's literally just siding with a different faction. And you're still not addressing the other stuff that the Institute's doing. If you side with the Railroad, they're never like, hey, they're killing and replacing people, that's bad. They're making super mutants, that's bad. It's like, we need to free the synths, okay? Why? Why? Because slavery's bad. They're robots. No, they're people. No, they're robots. Like, legit, they're robots. 100%. But they can have souls. No, they can't. Souls aren't real. Spoiler alert, by the way. And Malik, you're saying they don't have dedicated writers. Like, the main quest didn't have writers? I don't believe that. I know that their quest design, they like pull quest ideas from a whole bunch of different people, but like they didn't write the main quest that way. Because then there would be no sense to any of it. If they just had people write random quests and then threw them in the game and then said that was the main quest, like the plot is bad, but there's A to B to C to it. The side quests, absolutely. I could absolutely, like, the whiteboard thing has been said many times by better analysts than me of Fallout 4's story. Of, we put out a suggestion box of people who wrote one line, a one-sentence description of a quest, and then that's what we did. And they never rise above the one-sentence description. But, like, you can't write the main quest that way. You can't just take 6 or 7 of the one-sentence quests and then put them back to back and say that's the main quest. Like, somebody wrote the main quest. And I would absolutely believe that, like, one guy wrote the Institute, and then one guy wrote the Railroad, and then a different guy wrote the Minutemen. In as much as there was writing in the Minutemen was like 2 quests and then a bunch of Radiant quests. And then somebody did Brotherhood of Steel. Like, I have to believe that. Because the idea that they just took their whiteboard of quest descriptions and then just like picked 7 and said these 7 lines are the Brotherhood of Steel. That's the main quest for Brotherhood of Steel. I can't believe that. I refuse to believe that is how it worked. I 100% believe that that's how all of the side quests came about. And I can 100% believe that the person who did the Institute main quests was like not communicating with the person who did the Railroad main quest. What did I say? Institute and Railroad. Those 2 people I can understand not communicating, because I could absolutely see the person writing the Railroad story going, okay, your quest is this, your quest is that, but you're infiltrating the Institute, so do X quests for Institute. And they don't know what those X quests are. And the reason they don't know what those X quests are is because they're not communicating, and that's how you have the situation where you can literally go into the Bunker Hill quest, the attack on Bunker Hill, with all 3 factions friendly to you, or at least neutral to you, such that they don't attack you. and then you can just watch and sit back and do nothing, and that's the quest. Because I absolutely believe that nobody was communicating in that, and there was no coordination. But I have to believe that the person who wrote the Institute main quest wrote the Institute main quests. And the person who wrote the Railroad main quests wrote the Railroad main quests. I have not been paying attention to my hit points. Am I about to die? I would not be surprised. How many hit points does Tails have? Oh, he's fine. Never mind. I'm stupid. And I'm stupid for thinking that there's any level of organization in the writing department at Bethesda. How did I get on this topic? What was I even doing? Yes, I know they have a bunch of people listed as writer quest designer because they like I said, they just farm out the individual bits. Like I said, I'm absolutely sure that they had people write one-line ideas on a whiteboard, and then they took the best ones, and those were side quests. But it's like, in Oblivion, for the most part, one writer wrote, like, the Thieves Guild. One writer wrote the Mages Guild, for the most part. There was, like, ideas taken from other people as well, but there was a person in charge of the Mages Guild. There was a person in charge of the Thieves Guild. Famously, Eric Pagliarulo was in charge of the Dark Brotherhood. He will never let you forget that. He would love for you to forget that he was in charge of the arena, because the arena sucked ass and had basically no story, and the story in it was bad. But boy, does he beat his drum loudly when it comes to, I wrote the Dark Brotherhood, and the first half of the Dark Brotherhood was okay. And yeah, there was no one person in charge of the whole thing. There was no oversight. When Eric Pagliarulo wrote the Dark Brotherhood questline, he was free to write whatever he wanted for the questline, with no oversight. But somebody wrote the main quest. Somebody was in charge of the main quest in Oblivion. Yeah, the oversight was Todd Howard, which was a mistake. Like, he's the oversight for the whole game. But he's not, like, corralling the writers to say, your Mages Guild quests have to be consistent with what's presented in the Thieves Guild quests, because there are Thieves Guild quests that have you steal from the Mages Guild. Therefore, I'm going to supervise both of the persons writing Mages Guild and Thieves Guild and make sure they're on the same page and make sure that these interact correctly. Nobody was doing that. I'm not saying that there was a sole writer. I'm saying that there had to be a head writer for the main story. There had to be somebody in charge of the main story. Just like there had to be somebody in charge of the main story of Oblivion. And even then, like what I'm talking about, Fallout 4 has 4 different main quest factions you can side with. I'm guessing there was just somebody in charge of the Institute quest line and not coordinating with the Railroad and not coordinating with the Brotherhood of Steel and not coordinating with the Minutemen. I'm not even talking as much as, yeah, the game's a mess. But, like, they couldn't make a game if there wasn't somebody making the decision at some level. Because, like, what's the alternative if there's not a person in charge of the Institute? The alternatives are everybody's working on every quest line, which is obviously not true. You know, there is not a writer's room where 12 guys are sitting around. What do you think the Institute should be? Well, I think they should do this. Oh, that's interesting. See, I was thinking something more like this. And they collaborate and, like, come together as a huge group of people so that everybody's on the same page of every quest. Thank you for the follow, Cosmo. I'm sorry. I'm going to mispronounce this. Cosmo versus Siglemic? Siglemic? I don't know what that is. Thank you for the follow, though. Because if all 12 people, or however many people, were sitting and communicating together over the entire thing, they would interact so much better. Like, the game would be better than it is. So that's obviously not what happened. It was not 12 people in an equal collaboration. And the alternative to that is they put up their whiteboard. Every employee in Bethesda wrote a sentence for a quest idea. And then what? And then nothing? Like, somebody at some level, even if they wrote their idea on the whiteboard and then they each went off and they each made their own one idea. And every writer in Bethesda wrote one single quest with no context for how it would fit into any of the other quests and no idea what this game was even about. Somebody took those quests and put them in an order and decided this quest goes here. This quest goes here. This quest is a prerequisite for that quest. Somebody decided that. I'm sorry, Cosmo, I'm ranting right now. I will get to it in just a moment. Somebody decided that about Fallout 4. And I believe that it is the case that one person was in charge of that decision for the Institute, and another person was in charge of that decision for the Railroad, and a different person was in charge of that decision for the Minutemen, and a different person was in charge of that decision for the Brotherhood of Steel. Somebody had to corral the cats. Somebody did. Anyway, Cosmo, I am 380 some hours into this. He is level 60 in Final Fantasy IX. I'm talking about just Final Fantasy IX at this point. 380 some hours in. He's level 60. That is not very far in. So let's see. So he is at 1 million and a little XP. To get to level 99 will take 6,633,000 and a little XP. So he is not, he is about 15% of the way there. I haven't done the math, but like he's not quite 1/6. And 15% is not quite 1/6, so we'll say he's 15% of the way there. So this will take about 2,400 hours, give or take. It's hard to extrapolate out over such a great length of time because any inaccuracy is going to be magnified. I doubt that this has been done before. I'm the only person crazy and stupid enough to do this. Because I'm the person who did it in Final Fantasy VII, possibly first on original hardware. It had been done before. But I don't know that it had been done on a PlayStation with a PlayStation controller without the use of turbo, without an emulator, without any kind of fast forward or anything like that. I know that I did it on original hardware. And I made the recordings and I streamed off of original hardware. So, but I know I was not the first to do it at all in Final Fantasy VII. I'm obviously not the first person to do it in Final Fantasy VIII because it's really easy to do it in Final Fantasy VIII. And I don't think I'm the first person to do it in Final Fantasy Tactics because it's even easier to do it in Tactics, although fewer people played it, and you're kind of disincentivized by the game system to do that. But I'm guessing somebody's done it before. In Skyrim, I started Skyrim last Monday because I just wanted something to break up just Final Fantasy IX because my brain was kind of dying. So I needed something to relieve myself of just Final Fantasy IX. So in Skyrim, I'm going to hit this and I'm going to wake my mouse up so I can turn. I am in this cave at the end of Helgen. I'm in the Helgen cave. There's the bear. I kind of glitched my way here so I don't have person, Hadvar, Rayloff, whoever it was, I forget. So I don't have them there because I walked through a wall to get here. Thanks, wooden bowl. So there's a bear sneaking, or there's a bear sleeping there. I am sneaking, as you can see from the icon, and then I'm going to auto run into this wall, and that grinds my stealth, or it grinds my sneak. And when my sneak hits 100, I make it legendary. And after I make it legendary 26 times, and then a little more, I will get to level 99 in Skyrim. I estimate, very roughly, again, it's a rough estimate, this will take about 150 hours in total. Which I usually have been doing like 2 hours in a stream. So that'll be a couple months. Yeah, 75 days is 2.5 months. I can do math. Not really. I have cognitive impairment, I should mention. I have severe migraines, I should mention. So yeah, I am in Helgen Keep, or I'm in Helgen Cave, technically, in Skyrim. I am in the Evil Forest in Final Fantasy IX. And yes, the fight counter is referring to Final Fantasy IX. I cannot guarantee its accuracy because I have to like manually push a button when I get into a fight to make the counter go down. So if I forget to hit the button or I get distracted and don't hit the button, we just got 69 sneak. Nice. That is the second time it's been nice. No, it's not. I lied. This is... Wait, now I'm going to check. Let's level up. We'll grab some health, because why not? We'll grab some stamina, because why not? Come on. Come on. Okay, so I've made it legendary twice. So this is the third time that Sneak has been 69. This is the third nice Sneak. So there we go. Meanwhile, yeah, there's a bit of a story to me doing it in Final Fantasy VII. Cybershell did an excellent video about it. If you Google for that, the original article about it at the time that I did it was in Kotaku. It got picked up by a bunch of other outlets. I think The Verge has the top result. If you Google Circle Master FF7, you'll get The Verge as your top result, probably, I think. I forget. SEO is mysterious and beyond my reckoning. But yeah. So yeah, either of those articles or the Cybershell video is the best source on the saga of Dicktree. If you just want some context for what I did and why, the articles are quicker reads. The video's like 20 minutes. The VOD of me finishing Final Fantasy VII is like an hour. So Cybershell's 20-minute video has many more views than my 50-minute actually doing it. Not that I'm begrudging of Cybershell. I very much appreciate his making the video, and you know, check out Cybershell. He also, I don't remember the timeline of events anymore. At some point after he did the Final Fantasy VII video, he also did a video on Operation Soda Steel, which is from the same forum as Dicktree saga is from. Operation Soda Steel was very weird. Yeah, I think I'm gonna change up this playlist to take out the songs with lyrics in them, because it's kind of... Maybe it's just me, but it's kind of bugging me. And, you know, I'm the one who has to sit and listen to this for hours. So I will probably take those out. I might get some other music to replace. Or I might just have 2 fewer tracks on this playlist. But I need to construct new playlists for other genres of music, because I used to have electronic classical rock, and copyright claims happen. Bleh. So like today, I went and downloaded more music to do the electronic playlist. So I want to at least do classical as well. I don't know any other genres of music that people might want. But when I have more genres of music available, I will turn back on the change the music channel point option, so that you can change the music to the genre of your preference of those available. Also, I've never finished Final Fantasy VII, so I cannot say that it's my favorite in any capacity. My favorite is Final Fantasy VI, because I'm old, and I played the Super Nintendo ones to hell and back. And Final Fantasy VI is great. I love Final Fantasy VI. It's been a while since I replayed it, in fact. I would have to check when I did the 100% playthrough for Final Fantasy VI, because that was the last time I played it. But I have a playthrough on YouTube of me playing Final Fantasy VI to 100% completion. I got all the items and magic, espers, rages, lores, dances, other things. I'm desperately trying to remember what other things were collectible and missable. I don't remember. Blitzes. I got all the stuff. I did all the things. It's on the YouTube channel. If I forgot to do Neverleaf Sanctuary, I definitely forgot to do Final Fantasy VI in the corner for YouTube. I'm sorry. But again, it's on my channel. Just look for Final Fantasy VI 100%. It's there. And it ends with a mini glitch exhibition. I show off some glitches. I do the big glitch that is near and dear, not really to my heart, but to fun times. It takes a lot of setup, and I have no idea how anybody ever discovered it in the first place. But there's a character called General Leo who dies. He gets killed by the villain. And in no way did that inspire another character to die in Final Fantasy VII that became way more well known than Final Fantasy VI for having a character die partway through. I'm not bitter. Anyway, General Leo gets killed. But unlike the Final Fantasy VII character, there is a glitch you can do to bring him back to life. And I show off that glitch. It takes like hours because it's a huge setup. But I do it. I bring General Leo back to life. And you can check that out. It's at the end of that playlist. It's a way long video, but hey, I show off other glitches too. It's not just bringing General Leo back to life. Two? Who the heck plays 2? That's like the bad one. That's the one where you punch yourself to get hit points. Because they decided to try to do use-based skills in a JRPG. Like, you went and played 2, but not 5? I don't get that. Well, I do get it. I'm guessing you bought the PlayStation remake of 1 and 2 in whatever the hell it was called, and then you played 1 and 2 on that remake, and then you didn't do it for 5 and 6. Or was it 5 and 6 together, or was it some other pairing together? I don't remember. I also could not get my way through Final Fantasy X. Like, I bounced hard off of the PlayStation Final Fantasies. I played 7. I couldn't get through disc 1. I played for a while. But I bailed on that because it just wasn't compelling. When I first tried to play Final Fantasy VIII, there was some problem with my PlayStation at the time where it was taking over a full minute to load a random battle. It was literally unplayable, so I didn't play it. And then I never even tried 9. And then the PS2 came out, and then Final Fantasy X came out, and I'm like, everybody says Final Fantasy VII was great, and blah blah blah. Maybe I just didn't give it a fair shake. 10's coming out. I'm gonna give 10 a fair shake. I'm gonna sit down. I'm gonna play it, and I'm gonna play it through and really give it every chance. And I couldn't get through it. I got to Blitzball. I unlocked Blitzball, and I'm like, this is such a pain. But maybe Blitzball will be good. And if you do Blitzball, you get a super move or something for Tidus. And so I tried to play Blitzball, and Blitzball was so bad. And then I never touched Final Fantasy X again. And I didn't give a shit about about 10-2 when it came out. And I continued to not give a shit when the MMO came out, and then I continued to not give a shit when 12 came out. Until I found out that 12 had the Gambit system, which I thought was really interesting, so I rented it, and found out that you don't unlock the Gambit system until like a third of the way through the game or some bullshit. And then I returned it. And then 13 came out, and I super didn't care. And then 13.2 came out, and I was like, wow, they're not even trying anymore. And then 13.3 came out, and I'm like, boy, they are desperate. And then 14 came out, and I'm like, oh, it's another MMO, I don't give a shit. And eventually 15 came out. And it was so much off of my radar at that point. It had been so long since I enjoyed a Final Fantasy game that I was not even aware of it before release. Like, it was just... I only heard about it after it came out. So yeah, the only good PlayStation Final Fantasy is Tactics. None of the PS2 ones are good. None of the PS3 ones are good. Apparently 14 is better. I recently tried the free trial of 14. When the 14 free trial reached meme status, I'm like, you know what? Why not? It is free. I'll give it a shot. And I played it to like level 30 something. And then I didn't play it for a week. And then a week turned into a month. And a month turned into several months. And now I don't remember when the last time I played it was. It was probably less than a year. But, yeah, nothing compels me to look at it at all. And the lesson is, I'm old. I'm old and I stick to the old games. Like, I'll be honest, I have no memory of why I got Final Fantasy Tactics in the first place. I might have bought it at the same time as 7. I literally don't remember. But for whatever reason, it may have been because I had recently tried Tactics Ogre. But for whatever reason, I stuck with Tactics long enough for it to grab me. But like, I literally can't tell you why. Like, for all I know, I only bought it because it said Final Fantasy on it. Because, you know, at a certain point, I was buying stuff that said Final Fantasy on it just because it was cool. Or not because it was cool, but because I thought Final Fantasy was cool. And some of it was legitimately cool. Like the Final Fantasy VI Piano Collection. That's a cool CD. I lost the sheet music in it though, which makes me sad. And yeah, it's like I actively dislike Final Fantasy X. But I do not actively dislike Final Fantasy XIV. Final Fantasy XIV isn't bad. But like, the wealth of game options in the world today, especially on PC, means that in order to garner precious little attention, a game has to grab you. You have to be compelled to play a game. Just not being bad isn't good enough. There has to be something about it that hooks you. And actually, I think a good example of this, in my case at least, is, I don't know the name of the company, but FTL Faster Than Light was made by somebody, some group of somebodies, who went on to make Into the Breach. They're different games. Like Faster Than Light is like, I don't even know how to describe it. A spaceship management combat game in real time across a map of places that you visit. Where you travel via map. You pick points on map rather than manually fly from A to B. Into the Breach is a turn-based puzzle game that takes place on land on a tactics board, you know, square grid type of board with facing and all that. So it's like a tactics game with time manipulation that makes it more of a puzzle game. And like I said, it's turn-based. Whereas FTL is real-time with pausing, but everything is based on timers. I'm gonna remember to hit the button. FTL, I really enjoy. FTL grabbed me. And I'm still at times compelled to play FTL. Into the Breach is fine. It's an objectively good game. It has objectively more polish than FTL. It's clearly the product of somebody who has grown from their first game into making their next game. You know, they've learned lessons and they're incorporating those lessons. But it doesn't grab me. And I think the reason, it's not because it's turn-based and the other's real-time, it's not because it's a grid instead of whatever, and it's not because it's a puzzle game instead of an action game or anything like that. It's because FTL has non-combat encounters. Every time, every map thing that you do in Into the Breach is you fight enemies. Sometimes you pick which map among options that you fight enemies in. You have a kind of upgrade meta that influences things outside of, that, you know, you make decisions outside of combat in terms of how you upgrade your units and things like that. But everything you do in Into the Breach is you fight on a grid. In FTL, when you go to a point on a map, or on the map, sometimes it's a fight against an enemy ship. Most of the time, it's a fight against an enemy ship. But some of the time, you get a text presentation of something is being described to you that is not depicted in the game. Like, you come upon a refueling station that appears to be unmanned, blah blah blah. And then you have a numbered list of things that you can do. It's kind of like a visual, it's the world's briefest visual novel / choose your own adventure book. Where you could, like, you come upon a refueling platform that appears to be abandoned. Do you dock with the refueling platform? Do you avoid the refueling platform? If you dock with it, you might get more information. You might have another choice to make. You might be able to make special choices that are only available because of certain upgrades or crew members on your ship. Maybe you have advanced scanners that can tell you that on the refueling platform there's a group of pirates waiting to ambush you. Maybe you get a thing that says the fuel is unstable and going to explode. So you have other purposes to having different ship upgrades and crew members outside of combat. And the choices that you make in these things create different outcomes that can help or hinder you based on your choices. It is an encounter that has mechanical import on the game, but does not involve combat. And I think the fact that that's there, I think the fact that you can have combat and non-combat encounters, is why I get compelled to play FTL from time to time. But I have not played Into the Breach since its release. And that's an entirely personal thing on me, because I grew up with Choose Your Own Adventure books. I still have Choose Your Own Adventure books. Like, I kept them from my childhood. Unfortunately, I didn't keep all the ones that I had in my childhood, because there were a couple I'm like, man, I wish I still had those. But, like, that's a big thing for me, nostalgia-wise, and just my personality. Because video games and Choose Your Own Adventure books were child me, Circle Master Jr.'s first experiences with narrative agency. And narrative agency is an incredibly powerful thing when done right. It's the reason why people are rabid fans of Fallout New Vegas, but not Fallout 4. Because Fallout New Vegas gives you way more narrative agency than Fallout 4 does. And that narrative agency made a really strong impression on me at a really young age. And that is why, to this day, I value narrative agency in media. Like, I'm the guy who checks out those FMV adventure games that show up from time to time on Steam. I'm the guy who wants the interactive movies. I'm the guy who wants choose your own adventure books to continue to be a thing. How did I get on this tangent now? I don't know. But my brain just shut it off. I no longer know what I was saying. And I'm sorry. But I do agree that the MMOs should not have gotten numbered entries. I 100% agree. It should have been Final Fantasy Online, not Final Fantasy 11. Though, to be honest, if it wasn't a numbered entry, it would not nearly have gotten as many people to play it. They made it a numbered entry as a promise to the fans that there would be the story and narrative that you expect from a Final Fantasy game, and not the filler content of an MMO. Whether they kept that promise is an exercise to the reader. I never played Final Fantasy 11, and I know 14 has a narrative, but I was not drawn in by it. Also, it feels like 50% of the characters in Final Fantasy XIV are the what are they called? Lalafels or whatever. The tiny midget things. And it's like, I guess you're throwing a bunch of these at me so that I don't think that they're joke characters, but I think that they're joke characters. Like, I think trying to get me to take these characters seriously is a mistake, and it will never work. Because I don't take those characters seriously at all. No matter how hard they want me to. Or how much they want me to. I don't know words. I can't words anymore. It's almost midnight. I should probably de-words this stream, which is to say, put an end to it. What am I at? I need to do the run back. You know what? Why not? Let's call it. It's been a time. Let's hopefully not too quickly get it up. No, I need to get it though. There we go. There's the second half of that fight. I also need to fix the music for next time. And get more. Hopefully I'll remember to do that. I'm guessing that I won't. I'm guessing I'll be stupid. Because my brain doesn't work. Uh, well, like I said, Skyrim's gonna take about 2.5 months. Final Fantasy IX at my current pace is gonna take years. Like, I could finish Final Fantasy IX in less than a year if I did it for 8 hours a day. I cannot afford to do it for 8 hours a day. I have to do, like, work, because I need money. I don't make much money from streaming, in case you didn't notice. If you want to help with that, I have a Patreon. It's linked down below. Check out my Patreon, where you can support me in my endeavor to get to level 99 in things. But yeah, it will take years. And you should also check out the secret word of the day. For those of you on YouTube, please comment the word authoritative so that I know you made it to the end of the video. Nobody will post that word because nobody will post any comments because people don't watch these videos. But I keep making them for some reason. And you'll find out what that reason is never, but also not this time, because this time is the end of time of this episode. So, I don't know where this was going, I'm sorry. The point is, the point is I need to level up in Skyrim first. Oh my god. I'm authoritatively bad at video games, and the authority is lived experience. That's not what authoritative means at all. I can't talk anymore. So I'll just say goodnight. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, take care.